We bring in now Fox News contributors Nicole Parker and Paul Mauro. Nicole, obviously the timing of this is not great for anybody, but there's never good timing for an ICE agent in the line of duty trying to get a Venezuelan, as reported by Bill Melugin, as reported by others, and being confronted with somebody that's aggressive with a shovel. Alexis McAdams saying the same story. That's what we know at this point, and then being shot in the leg. That part concerns me as law enforcement. You don't really hear law enforcement aiming for a leg, do you?
No, you typically do not hear that. But again, law enforcement, these individuals, these ICE agents have been subjected to tremendous amounts of violence. This is unacceptable. This cannot be tolerated. And what we've seen in the last week and what's coming out about the shooting that occurred last week is that that is for sure a clean shoot, indisputably a clean shoot. And the more evidence that comes forward, we are seeing the harm and danger that they are being subjected to. And these ICE agents.
Nicole, ICE did report today, just to update people on that initial incident where that first shooting took place, that the officer did in fact have internal bleeding injuries. He was hit by that car.
That is correct, and he did. He sustained a serious injury, internal bleeding in his torso. But Sean, regardless of the fact that he may or may not have had internal bleeding, which we know that he did, let's say he did not. That doesn't mean that the shoot was not clean. Based on the law and on the deadly force policy, that is not the requirement. It is the perception of the agent at the time that the incident occurred, and did they believe that their life was in serious or imminent danger of death or serious physical injury, which this individual clearly did. Based on his past experience, even back in June, this same agent had been drugged behind a car for around 50 yards. Inexcusable. That definitely goes into the factoring decision. And I can tell you that being an agent, I have said this on air many times. I lost my best friend in the line of duty. She did not have the chance to defend her life. No agent should have to take the risk of not going home alive because there are individuals who want to cause them harm. That is not the expectation of any federal agent or any law enforcement officer. And they are so accustomed, particularly in Minneapolis, we saw what happened post George Floyd, that they think, that law enforcement has no rights. That is not the case. They abide by the law. Law enforcement only pulls out their weapon when they absolutely have to, Sean, because they know that they will undergo major scrutiny in the aftermath, even if it is a clean shoot. No officer or agent wants to ever have to take somebody's life, but at the same time, they have the right to go home alive as well.
Very well said. I can't say it any better, but, we've had multiple ramming incidents. We had exclusive video, Paul Mauro, on this show last night of yet another ramming incident that was taking place. And every one of those moments is a potential disaster. We also have learned in the days since the first shooting in Minneapolis that there are groups, we call it astroturfing organizations. They're well organized. They're putting out manuals how to resist ICE and how to, fight back against ICE. And that's all being fueled by rhetoric, by elected officials. In this case, Minneapolis Mayor Frey or Governor Walz, get the F out of Minneapolis, or they're the Gestapo. And it's getting worse and worse and more dangerous for these agents by the day. We don't know the details, but if the reports are accurate, this guy came at him with a shovel. He's in the country illegally. He's from Venezuela. That is a clear and present danger to any officer doing business with that person.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how the story develops. And of course, it's very, very preliminary. Excuse me. But the bottom line is, if you come at law enforcement with a shovel, they are going to react. And once again, it's going to be a split-second decision based on the totality of the circumstances. But to advance the story, Sean, and I think you just did, this is very, very clearly because this is what the politicians in Minnesota and the NGOs who are their handmaidens here want. This is the kind of chaos that they want. And my proof for that is the fact that you don't see any local police anywhere. It would take a very, very simple deployment to trouble spots of the local police to just keep the peace, allow people to protest. You've never once heard Tim Walz or Jacob Frey say, protest lawfully. You've never once heard one of them say, do not interfere with the lawful operations of federal agents. You won't hear that because it's not what they want, because it doesn't work for them. All this goes to this Democratic Party NGO ecosystem that is just churning money, a lot of it federal money, and it just is our money being used essentially to target ICE officers. To me, it's criminal. And they've really lost the narrative up there. And I have to tell you, Tim Walz and Jacob Frey have a lot to answer for. Principal among it is simply, why are you not using the local police to stop this? And why would you hold on to the over 1,300 hardened criminals that are deportable that you have in your prisons? If you're so concerned about chaos and safety, why don't you just hand them over and then maybe this would ratchet down? Because those are, by definition, worst of the worst. But they won't do it because it doesn't work for them politically.
You know, Nicole Parker, I started the show out tonight with an example and video of coverage when Barack Obama used ICE agents and raids to deport people, not even criminal illegals, Nicole. When he did that, he was being praised in the media. What happened? What changed? Is it just, oh, Donald Trump? It's Donald Trump's ICE, Donald Trump's president? Because it's such a stark difference.
You nailed it. It's Donald Trump. These individuals have such disdain for one man that all of the rules of engagement for them have changed. Barack Obama could do the same thing, and it's okay. President Trump does it, not okay. That's just the plain and simple answer. There's really not much more to say about it. You nailed it. That is the problem. They have no respect for President Trump. They have what many refer to as Trump derangement syndrome. And regardless of what your thoughts are on President Trump, he is enforcing laws. He's allowing his, ICE agents and law enforcement officers to do what they have, been asked to do. This is the vast majority of the American people wanted mass deportation. That's what the American people voted for. President Trump is delivering on exactly what the American people wanted. And I can tell you from a law enforcement perspective, he is so highly praised and appreciated in law enforcement because there's nothing worse than being out there enforcing the law and knowing that the President of the United States and your Attorney General and your, whatever chain of command you have does not support you. And I'll tell you that when I left the FBI, that is how we felt. Law enforcement felt demoralized. They felt that we did not have the right to defend our lives. I can tell you that they changed the DOJ's deadly force policy for the first time in 18 years under the Biden administration, and it caused a lot of concern for FBI agents, for example, because we felt that we would not be protected if we were asked to defend our lives if we were at high risk. And that is no longer the case under President Trump and his administration and his leadership and his DHS and his FBI and his DOJ. But again, people always say, this was just a shovel or whatever, it was just a vehicle. It wasn't a firearm. The law does not require, and the policies do not require that it is a firearm. If there is any sort of weapon, it could be, a vehicle, it could be a shovel, it could be a golf club, it could be whatever you use, a bat. If the agent feels that their life is in imminent danger of death or serious physical injury, then deadly force is justified. Of course, they are going to be trying to use the least possible method to eliminate or neutralize the threat. But again, it comes down to action versus reaction. It's very easy for people to Monday morning quarterback and say, well, this is what they should have done. Until you have had this situation and you have been dealt this hand and you are defending your life, I would seriously leave it up to the investigation and those that are involved to look into this.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.